Level up quietly, outgrow excuses. Welcome to RiseDaily. Let's rise. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lose the war no one else can see, the war inside their mind. Every morning, before the world even touches you, a voice begins speaking. You're behind. You're not ready. Why even try? And if you don't learn to control that voice, it will control you, because the greatest prison isn't poverty. It isn't rejection. It isn't bad luck. The greatest prison is an undisciplined mind. But here is the truth most people discover too late. When you control your mindset, you stop being a victim of life and become its architect. There was a time when a young mountain climber attempted a summit no one believed he could reach. Halfway up, a violent storm hit. Wind screamed. Ice shattered beneath his boots. Visibility vanished. His team turned back, but he didn't. Not because he was stronger, not because he was fearless, but because he understood something that most people never will. The mountain is never the real obstacle, the mind is. And what happened next would become a lesson in mental mastery that applies to every human alive. But first, you need to understand why your mindset silently controls nearly every outcome in your life. Your mind is always listening. Your mind is not a spectator. It is a recorder. Every word you repeat, every fear you rehearse, every doubt you entertain becomes instruction. The brain does not argue with what you tell it repeatedly. It adapts. Tell yourself you're unlucky. It will search for proof. Tell yourself you're incapable. It will lower your effort. Tell yourself the world is against you. It will make you defensive before the battle even begins. Your life begins to shrink, not because it must, but because your thinking made it so. Here is what few people realize. Your brain is less like a judge and more like a servant. It follows the dominant command. So if you don't consciously choose your thoughts, your conditioning will choose them for you. And conditioning is dangerous because it often sounds like truth. Voices from childhood, past failures, old embarrassment, other people's limitations, all replaying, until you mistake familiarity for reality. But the moment you become aware of this, you step into power, because you cannot control the first thought that enters your mind, but you can always control the second. The day you stop negotiating with doubt, doubt is persuasive. It speaks calmly, logically, reasonably. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to avoid risk, and sometimes it even sounds like wisdom. But here is the danger. Unchecked doubt becomes a life strategy. You start postponing the life you want. I'll begin when I feel ready. I'll try when things are perfect. I'll move when fear disappears. Listen carefully. Fear does not disappear before action. It dissolves because of action. The climber on that mountain knew this. As the storm intensified, his mind screamed, "Turn back, you could fall." This is too dangerous. But then another voice, a quieter, steadier, spoke. One step. Not the summit, not the entire climb, just one step. And that is how powerful mindset works. It shrinks overwhelming futures into manageable movements. Most people are not defeated by difficulty. They are defeated by the size of the picture they paint in their head. So control the frame. Zoom in. One call, one page, one workout, one uncomfortable conversation. Progress is rarely dramatic, but mindset turns small steps into unstoppable momentum. Emotional discipline, the skill that changes everything. Let's tell the truth most people avoid. You will not always feel motivated. Some mornings, you'll wake up heavy. Some seasons will test your confidence. Some efforts will go unnoticed. If your actions depend on your emotions, your life will always be unstable. High when you feel inspired, frozen when you don't. But the mentally strong live by a different code. They do not obey their feelings, they lead them. Emotional discipline is not suppression, it is leadership. It is the ability to say, "I acknowledge how I feel, but I choose what I do." This is where ordinary people separate from the rare. Anyone can act when energized. Few can act when tired, when uncertain, when discouraged. Yet those are the moments that build identity. The climber didn't silence fear. His heart raced, his hands trembled. But he refused to let emotion make the decision. And that is mindset mastery, feeling the storm without becoming it. Remember this, you don't become strong by avoiding hard moments. You become strong by behaving differently inside them. Guard the gates. Imagine your mind as a city. Every day, thousands of influences attempt to enter. News, opinions, social comparison, negativity disguised as entertainment. If you leave the gates open, chaos walks in. And slowly, almost invisibly, your standards drop. You tolerate less from yourself, expect less from life, attempt less than you're capable of, not because you decided to, but because environment rewired expectation. Here is a hard truth. Exposure shapes belief more than intelligence does. So be intentional. Protect what you watch. Protect what you listen to. Protect who gets repeated access to your attention, because attention is not cheap. It is creative energy. What you focus on expands. The climber understood this at altitude. He did not stare at the deadly drop beneath him. He fixed his eyes upward. Where focus goes, stability follows. Where focus drifts, fear multiplies. So ask yourself often, is what I'm feeding my mind strengthening me or shrinking me? Your future will answer. Identity, the hidden lever of behavior. Here is one of the most powerful shifts you will ever make. Stop asking, what should I do? Start asking, who am I becoming? Behavior that feels difficult often becomes effortless when it aligns with identity. A person who sees themselves as disciplined doesn't debate showing up. A person who sees themselves as resilient doesn't collapse after setbacks. They act in harmony with who they believe they are. So upgrade the self-image. Not through fantasy, but through evidence. Keep promises to yourself, especially small ones. Because every kept promise casts a vote for your future identity. Miss enough promises, and the mind begins to expect inconsistency, but honor them. And confidence stops being something you chase. It becomes something you carry. The climber didn't repeat, I hope I can. He reminded himself, I am the kind of person who continues, and the mind, always listening, followed the command, reframing, turning obstacles into training. Life will not consult your preferences. Plans will fail, doors will close, effort will sometimes go unrewarded. But mindset decides the meaning, and meaning decides momentum. Two people can experience the same setback. One sees proof to quit, the other sees preparation. The difference is interpretation. Ask stronger questions. Not, why is this happening to me? But, what is this teaching me? That single shift transforms pain into instruction. The storm that struck the mountain grew violent enough to force the climber into a narrow ice pocket 4 hours, cold, alone, uncertain. He could have labeled it disaster. Instead, he called it adaptation. He studied the wind patterns, adjusted his timing, learned the mountain's rhythm, and when the storm softened, he moved with precision others didn't have. Remember this always, the obstacle is not blocking the path. Often, it is the path. The power of mental repetition. Champions rehearse victory long before it arrives. Not arrogantly, but intentionally. The brain cannot fully distinguish between vividly imagined practice and real experience. So when you repeatedly picture yourself executing, persisting, finishing, you build familiarity. And familiarity breeds calm. That is why pressure breaks the unprepared, but sharpens the trained. See yourself handling difficulty with composure. See yourself continuing when it would be easier to stop. This is not fantasy. It is neurological preparation. Before the climber slept each night on the mountain, he mentally walked the next day's ascent, step by step, grip by grip, breath by breath. When morning came, his body followed a path the mind already knew. Control the internal movie. and the external performance rises to meet it. Detach from instant gratification. We live in a world addicted to immediacy. Quick results, fast validation, overnight transformation. But greatness operates on a quieter timeline. Mindset means tolerating the gap between effort and visible reward. It means trusting seeds you cannot yet see breaking soil. Most people quit in the silent phase, not realizing that roots were forming. The climb took longer than expected. Supplies thinned, energy dipped. But the climber wasn't chasing comfort. He was committed to completion. Understand this. Your mindset must be stronger than your desire for convenience. Because convenience builds fragile people. Challenge builds capable ones. The summit moment. After days inside uncertainty, the storm finally cleared. The sky opened, and step by deliberate step, he reached the summit, above the clouds, where silence feels sacred. But here is the part no one talks about. The victory wasn't standing on the peak. It was the person he had to become to get there. The disciplined thinker, the emotional leader, the relentless continual, mountains end, identity remains. And the same is true for you. Your goals matter. But who you become while pursuing them matters infinitely more. The war you must win, every day, a quiet battle begins again, between distraction and focus, fear and courage, excuses and execution. You don't win this war once. You win it daily, through thoughts you permit, stories you reject, standards you uphold. So when doubt whispers, answer with action. When emotion surges, respond with intention. When setbacks arrive, receive them as training. Because the moment you control your mindset, you stop reacting to life and start directing it. Remember, you are not your passing thoughts. You are the authority that chooses which ones stay. Discipline the mind, and your behavior will follow. Discipline behavior, and your future will change. So stand guard at the gates, lead your emotions, shrink the step. Honor your promises and keep climbing. Not because it's easy, but because you are no longer the person who turns back. Control your mindset, and you control the direction of your life. Grow quietly, rise daily.